Hello everyone, today we are going to start with arguments in Python and then we will learn about args and quarks. So let's get started with it. So first is what is an argument? Basically, we pass information in a function and in the form we pass the information is known as argument. It is also represented by args in the short form and if you are saying parameter and argument both are the same thing, but the difference is just that whenever we write inside a parenthesis, then that is a parameter, and when we pass while calling a function and the value which we write in the while we call the function, then that is argument. So let's see with an example. So here you can see that f name which we are using is the parameter and Emily is the argument. So let me run it while using a different name like John, and you can see the result John, good morning. So John is the argument and f name is the parameter. Now here is another function, but before that let us discuss something else. Number of arguments in a function. So the number of parameters in a function and the number of arguments while you call the function should be the same. Like if you are having two parameters, then you should write only two arguments while calling the function. And if you don't do so, then there will be an error. So let's see with this with an example. Okay, so here we have a function named my function and it takes two parameters, which is f name and l name. So here we are calling the function with, let me write Emily and some other name, and it runs successfully as you can see. But what if we don't give the other parameter, other argument? Let's just pass only Emily. You can see the error that it is missing one required positional argument. So this is what is meant by number of arguments. Number of arguments and number of parameters should be same in a function. Always remember that. Now if we again do Sean and run this, then it is perfectly fine. So you have to take care of this basically while using a function. Here is the another example. Here we have taken three parameters and three arguments, and let's run this again. And if you try to add one more parameter, let's say Kush, then it will give an error. Yes, it takes three positional arguments, but we have given four, so always take care of that. Let's run again, and it is perfectly fine. Okay, so I hope you guys got what are number of arguments. Now let's start with another topic, which is Python arbitrary arguments. So what if you want to use multiple number of arguments? Like sometimes you have to use three or four or five. You don't know, right? So what happens then? Like how to use that? So this is also possible in Python using args. So let's see this with an example. Okay. So the how do we write this? So how do we define it basically? So we have to use a star or asterisk, whatever you call it, and give it a name. Like I have given args, you can give any other name, any other name. So and we have taken a function also here. It has three arguments basically, and we are using a for loop in a function, and this for loop runs the number of times the arguments we have passed in a function. So we have passed three arguments, so it will run three times and print the name in the argument. So let's run this. Oh, here you can see, here we have taken, please note this, like we are using star and then we are defining it a name. What if we don't use a star? Let's see what happens. It will give an error. It because we have only used we have only passed one parameter and we are giving three arguments, so it will give an error. So let me run this again and now it's perfectly fine. What if I give only two arguments? It runs perfectly fine. And what if we give more than three, like Ria, comma, John? So you can see each and every argument is printed, and note that when we pass args, the values are printed in the tuple. Here you can see that everything is printed in the same line, and here everything is printed in different line. So args uses tuple data type, and I think you might have heard about that. And so yeah, this is all about args. And what if we change the name? Suppose I write here names, and here also then I have to change it. Then also it's fine. Like you can assign any name, but please note that you use this asterisk or star, whatever call it. Like you have to use it. It's a mandatory. What if we want to pass a normal argument and then args? So can you do it? So the answer is yes, we can do it, but we have to remember that first we have to pass the normal argument and then args. Here in this example, we are taking normal as Krish, and in the function when we are calling the function, we are passing three more arguments. So let's run this. Here you can see Krish, Rohan, Shreya, Ria. So what if we like swap it, the normal and args? Let's try to swap it. And if we are swapping it here, we have to do it here also. Let's do it. Here you can see that when we are first pass args and then normal, it doesn't work because it is the rule that first we have to pass normal and then we can give args. So whenever you try to do this, like first you're passing args, then it will give an error because this is not what is defined in Python. You can't do that. So we have to do the same again. Let's try to run this and then now it's correct. So always remember to pass normal first and then only args. Now let's move ahead. So what is a keyword argument? Basically, keyword is when you are assigning some keyword to the argument which you pass. Suppose, let me see. Okay. Here we are just passing just by initializing like we are not initializing it, but we are just passing, giving it no keyword we are using here. We are passing by like randomly we are doing that, and no keyword like doing we are giving here like name or age or first name, last name, no keyword. Now we'll take another example in which we have a keyword. Like when we are calling the function, we are using a keyword first name, last name, age. So these are known as keywords. Now, when you use keywords while calling the function, you have to use Kwargs. So Python passes variable length non-keyword argument to function using args, which we have already seen. And when we are using keyword, we have to call it Kwargs. It allows us to pass the variable length of keyword argument to the function. Here we have written an example. So always remember that For quarks, we use double star or double asterisk, whatever you call it, which is a mandatory while using quarks. And if you don't do it, then it will not work properly. Like if we run it like this, and it will give us error that got an unexpected keyword argument, because we are defining keyword here and we have only given one asterisk. Let's give 2 and run again, and here is the perfect output. Like now what is data items? Data items basically the length of the our data, like first name, last name, age, phone number. So the length will be 4, and the loop will run 4 times. So this is the and format. We have done here formatting. So it will first print the key value, which is the first name, and then the value, which is Sita. So you can see that it works perfectly fine. You can use any name you want here. Like if I use let us suppose use KW, and here also KW. Let's see this. Yeah, it runs perfectly fine. So it is your choice to give it a name, but you remember that you have to use 2 asterisks in this. So that is mandatory. Let's move ahead. No, before that, let's see one thing. I'll comment this out. First, you will use normal, then you'll use arcs, and then box. Always remember this. We have seen that first we use normal and then arcs, but when we are using all the three of it, then always remember that the uh, positions will be assigned like this: first, second, and third. You can't swap it or you can't just change it. This is by default in Python, and you have to always use the same while passing in a function. So always remember this. And now we'll see, okay, by default parameters. So what are by default parameters? I mean, what? Like it's just a simple function and we are passing values and it gives the desired output. So what is by default? Suppose you don't give age here, suppose. Then obviously error will occur. But what if you write age here and doesn't pass age here? Then what? It runs perfectly fine. So this is what is known as by default parameters. Like if you give here none, none means nothing, just none. It doesn't mean zero, but it means like nothing, no value. So let's run this, and age is none. So even when we are not passing age, it doesn't give us an error. So this is what is meant by default parameters. By default already we have assigned it none, so it will print none and it will not give error. We can do the same with the last name. Suppose I assign it to unknown, then I just let's run this, and you can see last name is unknown, age is none. What if I pass some last name to pay? And now what you think, guys, what will happen? Let's run this, okay? You can see it is printed exactly what we have passed. Ria Dube, ages 24, and it works perfectly fine. So if we don't pass, then only the unknown and none will be printed. But if we pass, then there is no issue, like it runs perfectly fine. So let's see one more thing which is important. What if we give age here? We don't default the age. We just default last name, and let's work with it. What will be the output? Let's run this. So here we got an error which says that non-default argument follows default argument. What does it mean? It means that whenever you are giving default value to something, some parameter, it should be always given at last. Like it follows the default argument and then only you can give the undefault, like non-default argument. You cannot give the default argument in the middle parameter. Like we are here, we have first last name and we have given it unknown, and the age don't have any default parameter, so we can't do that. Similarly, if we assign name is equals to unknown, then also there is error because we can't do it. But if we do age is equals to none, then that is perfectly fine. We can do that, but like we cannot use it before the non-default parameters. Always remember that. So then at that point it will give an error and your code will not work properly. So just remember that always use default parameters after non-default parameters. And I hope you guys understand all of these. Thank you so much. This was all about arguments, and thank you everyone.